everyone, my name is Olivia and I run a little blog called Millennial Girl Interrupted, the link to which you can find in the description down below. I've mostly stuck to writing essays for the blog, but the other day I came across this narrative essay that I wrote when I was in eating disorder treatment, and I figured the more artistic style of the piece was better suited to a video. I want to warn you, before I jump into it, that I was really sick when I wrote this. I had anorexia nervosa. I was diagnosed and I was only a few days into treatment, so I could see myself trying to be objective, but I was never fully able in this piece to separate my eating disordered voice from my true voice. The reason I'm sharing this with you all is because I want to exemplify for you what having an eating disorder and thinking eating disordered thoughts is really like. I do that as per my assignment for my treatment team at the time by conceptualizing the eating disordered voice as an abusive partner named Ed. This is modeled really well in the book Life Without Ed by Jenny Schaefer, and I super recommend everybody go check that book out. It was given to all of the patients upon intake at my treatment center, and it's a really good peek into the world of eating disorders. By understanding Ed as a voice totally separate from your true voice, folks with eating disorders can begin to find themselves again. So, without further ado, here is the essay that I wrote while I was sitting on top of my hospital bed on a rainy afternoon. Ed's voice is soft and quiet, but it is constantly chattering. When I'm not eating, he's insisting that the way in which I position my body, when sitting, arms crossed over stomach and knees pressed together to allow my thigh fat to fall, and, when standing, arms obscuring stomach, but out from my torso, thighs apart, and knees facing each other as much as possible, is crucial to how everyone is interpreting me. He says that if I allow my body to relax or be incorrectly exposed for even a second, my body will be revealed as fat, and that will signal to others that I'm undisciplined, lazy, unattractive, or just bad. He says all it takes is a second. When I'm eating, he's most active and fussy. His attitude changes depending on who's with me. If I'm with my parents, he tells me that I have to appear to eat normally, while crucially not doing so. He encourages me to make lots of mitigating comments like, "This is delicious," when around my mom, for if she's made the food, she'll be so flattered that she'll let her guard down, and I can get away with eating less. He tells me that sneaking and deception is justified for once, because if not, I'll gain weight. He can be comforting, though, because he'll often tell me I can make up for slip-ups, like having lunch, by skipping dinner for a few nights, or by going for a run. Every bite can be balanced somehow. If I'm alone, he needn't fret, because I don't often eat alone. I avoid it. If I'm alone, it's a relief, because Ed doesn't bother me, and I can feel powerful and peace by just not eating. Post-meal, Ed kicks into high gear. He has to administer the proper amount of shame and self-punishment to deter me from the next meal or any further slip-ups. He'll say that I'm undisciplined, lazy, weak for having eaten, and follow that up by saying it's okay, soothing me, because I can right the wrong by skipping the next, or by heading out into the running trail. His words are brusque, but giving me an out feels gracious and kind. I've agreed because it's much too exhausting to argue, and because I want to achieve the baseline level of respectability that he says will come with the right smallness. Smaller is better for not being seen. I would never judge other people based on his standards, but I often feel like I do deserve to be judged based on them. And Ed's words are almost entirely judgmental. I can intellectualize that distinction, judgment versus fact, very well, but I feel that the judgments are ultimately deserved because I do believe that it's fact that I'm fundamentally less worthy, such that I don't deserve protection from judgment. It is judgment, but it feels deserved. I feel worse when I agree with him, but the worseness feels correct. It's obviously not comfortable to believe that if my stomach roll is visible under my blouse, then my peers will see me as slovenly, and I'll hurriedly obscure it. But doing so gives me power that feels right and correct. None of my Ed-inspired behavior makes me feel good, but it just feels like the right thing to do. Speaking objectively, agreeing with Ed does little to help me. I'm constantly preoccupied with fixing myself or putting myself down, which sucks time and energy and makes me feel generally poor. The adverse physical consequences of adhering to Ed-type behavior, like aches and fatigue and bruising, are 95% unenjoyable, and the 5% is only in that they're physical reminders of discipline. It's not really helpful to have aches. The only helpfulness would come from the satisfaction and relief I get when I agree with Ed and make decisions at his request. Ed has promised me that a smaller body will be more respectable, and that when a body is more respectable, it can and should be ignored. Smaller, less space, more compact is better and more justifiable because it catches the attention of no one, and when seen would only be respectable. In a way, yes, people do treat me differently now that I'm smaller. My dad doesn't encourage me to exercise. My boyfriend is more attracted to me, sees me as more sweet and sympathetic. I can grip onto various body parts, wrist, ankle, etc., with my fingers touching, and my thighs never touch. Ed doesn't usually promise that I'll feel happy or love myself if I listen to him. He knows that wouldn't motivate me. I feel satisfaction when I do as he says. I'm righting a wrong, I'm fixing, I'm being disciplined. Fear of gaining weight and losing control is powerful. I feel like if I challenge Ed too much, I'll be unable to temper myself and I'll balloon and lose my ability to restrict at all. Or if I don't engage in non-eating Ed behaviors, then I could lose respectability in a moment of exposing my stomach or sitting wrong or scrunching my chin in. If I start disagreeing with him too much, I'm afraid I wouldn't stop. On the positive side, if I argued with his fundamental contentions about my worthiness successfully, I would be much more likely to like or even love myself. That would take an enormous amount of work, and in order to disagree, I'd need to get into the habitual practice of caring for myself, being kind to myself, and maybe loving myself too. I am happy to report that these days I do like myself. I'm still working on loving myself, but I try to perform acts of loving myself by doing things like going to school, doing my work, eating right, and even getting a massage membership for my achy bones. I only got here, though, by the grace of really intensive therapy and a commitment to surrendering to that treatment. If you're curious what my journey was like, or you have any other questions for me, I encourage you to go to the link down below, millennialgirlinterrupted.com. Thanks, guys, and remember to attend your next appointment.